And good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Lieutenant Colonel Darren Nennis here from National Headquarters, Civil Air Patrol. Hopefully, this is everybody can hear me. I didn't even think to check on that. Checking my live stream comments, maybe somebody will actually say, "Hey, yes, sir, we can hear you." In any event, we've updated things around here. The studio had a little technical malfunction literally seconds before I went on air. The central air heat here kicked on in the house, and a cover that I have over the lighting rig just blew right off. It was magic. So a little gaffer tape, and I was all set. In any event, tonight we're going to talk a little bit about volunteers and why they stay, why they're involved with the organization, and why they stay with the organization. Oh, good. Shelly tells me she can hear me. Good. I have all my computer equipment here. Recently converted to a stand-up desk, and it's not nearly as conducive for the production as my previous desk was. So I have to figure that whole thing out. Still working on that. So in any event, let's get to the presentation. We're going to talk about volunteers and why they stay. Okay, so we're going to talk about volunteers and what makes them stay in the organization. Let me get my notes screen up here. And if I can get my notes screen up, I'll be doing so much better. There we go. So volunteer landscape in the United States right now, about 62 million people volunteer their time each year. It's about 7.8 billion, that's with a B, billion volunteer hours. That was just in 2017. With about 167 billion in economic value. That's a lot. I mean, that's a lot of time and money wrapped up in volunteers in the United States. So we need to remember that the estimated value of each volunteer hour, and this varies state to state, but nationally, they figure it's pretty close to $25 an hour. So these are some things just kind of keep in the back of your mind when we start talking about volunteers and why they come and what they do for us, and what kind of impact they have in our organization and in other organizations across the country. But if you remember that estimated value of a volunteer hour of nearly $25 an hour, think about that for a minute, okay? And I say this to commanders all the time, you know, when you have volunteers come into your organization, do you want to leave people standing around twiddling their thumbs at $25 per hour, per person? That's not real good business sense if you're a business person. So it's just something to think about that. So with all that time and money wrapped up in volunteers, though, it really stands to reason that we really like to make them stick around. So recruiting really, you know, when somebody shows up to Civil Air Patrol, often there's, you know, duty sections that are looking for help. There's kind of two things in this motivation that you want to think about. There's the recruiting and the retention aspect. So when somebody shows up, there's like duty sections that are looking for help. You got emergency services, there's public affairs, there's cadet programs, there's administration and personnel, there's, you know, flight operations, whatever those duty sections are. So depending on your volunteer member, they might get shuffled around to a variety of areas doing a bunch of tasks, some of which may or may not be why they're actually even here, okay? So if you think, pardon me, if you think about it, to retain members, however, CAP leaders need to be aware of what motivates and leads each member to feel satisfied with the time they're contributing. Now, how do they get there? Okay, remember that there's all kinds of things that motivate people to participate. So let's just talk about a few of those things that motivate people to participate. So skill development, this is a great example. Sometimes volunteering isn't all about what you bring to the table, but what you can also learn and use from your participation in Civil Air Patrol to improve your own life. Think of the 150-hour pilot who wants to become better and maybe get his instrument rating in the process. Okay, he wants to be a better pilot. He also wants to give to the organization. Now, is he going to get something out of that? Yeah, he's going to get some skill development out of that. If everybody was volunteering in a vacuum and we all volunteered because, you know, we were incredibly altruistic and we did it just because, I suppose that would be great too, but let's face it, everybody wants to get something out of what they're doing to volunteer. Nobody comes to Civil Air Patrol, thankfully, at least I hope not, because they have to do community service hours. But, even those people that volunteer for organizations for their community service hours, they're getting something out of that. So finding out why people are here is a huge part of understanding where they're going to fall on that skill development part. It's important to know this. And how can you find that out? So let's use an example here. You've got a new senior member, we'll call her Martha, and she's in information technology. Now, some people's first thought is going to be, that person probably is going to be an IT person for the squadron. We desperately need somebody who can figure out one end of email from the other, or Cyber Patriot, or something like that. But if you dig deeper into why Martha has come to Civil Air Patrol, you might learn that Martha's really volunteering to get away from her day job. What she really wants to do maybe is become part of an air crew, because she's thinking that she wants to do aviation as a side career. So really, Martha wants to learn about the organization and fly, not necessarily be an IT person for the organization. So this shows how important it is to ascertain interest and skills in a newly recruited volunteer. Not just current skills, but also what they want to develop through volunteering with Civil Air Patrol. This is an important way to determine where they can be assigned to maximize your retention. So how do you find this out? I'm looking over here. Find out what their cheese is. That's right. But how do you find out what their cheese is? Okay. Well, you find out what their cheese is by sitting them down and having a conversation with them. Does anybody know what they call that? Wow, you guys are over here. I'm watching the real-time chats now. Not as real-time as I'd like to think. Let's call it a membership board. A lot of squadrons, even today, I talk to them and I say, so, you're doing membership boards, right? And they give me that deer caught in the headlights look. A membership board, what? They have no idea what we're talking about. A membership board is literally an interview. It's a way to sit down in a structured way with a new volunteer and determine what they're interested in, what they think they're going to get out of Civil Air Patrol, and what they can bring to the table. Okay. Otherwise, you're just bringing people in the front door with no knowledge of what they want, what they can do, how they can help you, what their motivation is, nothing like that. So remember, some of the things we're going to talk about here, the way you determine these things, or the way you position yourself with a volunteer to prepare to be to retain them, is through that initial membership board interview. So another reason that people come is for personal growth. Okay, they're expanding their horizons, meeting new people, learning new things. Back to that skill development thing a little bit. But some people like to, I hate to use the term, but get out of their shell a little bit. I know a couple of people who are members of Civil Air Patrol, and they're, they'll tell you on the Myers-Briggs scale, they're a heavy I. Okay, and so they said, I joined Civil Air Patrol because I kind of wanted to be a little less of an I. Okay, that's fine. You want to be less of an introvert. You want to come out. You want to meet people, hang out, do things. Some people are there for the more social aspects. Some people are there for the more mission aspects. Some people are there for the skill development aspects. It varies from member to member. So just remember that, some people feel that, that their volunteer experience may help enhance their career. It can help them personally. It could help them in a lot of different ways. Maybe somebody's looking for, help or information in making a career choice. Look at cadets. They come to Civil Air Patrol. Sometimes they think, oh, I'm really interested in the military. They're going to find out maybe that's not what they really should be interested in. Okay. So that personal growth aspect is important. Maybe they're bored of their local bridge circle or the Lions Club. Who knows? Some people come to us and they're seeking a challenge. Okay. Your volunteers really do want a challenge. And I'm not talking Hawk Mountain, Outward Bound kind of things. Although we do have a few of those. What I'm saying is they want to do cool things that cause them to stretch a little bit. They want to do things that make them work their brain. Sometimes. Sometimes I come to Civil Air Patrol so I don't have to work my brain. But if that sense of challenge is lacking, volunteers are generally not going to continue to serve. They're not going to continue to volunteer. So you always want to make sure you give your members something interesting, some challenging assignments along with the routine thing. Sure, you might say there's things to do with personnel here, okay? And personnel is like, exciting, right? I get it. I've been a personnel officer. And there's some routine things, processing new members, doing promotions, whatever. But occasionally there's other things that you might say, hey, could you dig into our personnel records and figure out, how many of our members have been in the squadron for longer than 10 years or something. So there's some challenge to that too, outside of the routine. So make sure you're challenging your members. That's what sometimes they're looking for. How about senior members who join to have quality time with one or more of their kids who are cadets? Certainly, there are people who join like that, Shelley. That is one of the things. Again, you determine that partly through your membership board. Well, obviously, they're going to have the same last name as one of your cadets potentially. Okay. But also they're looking for maybe some personal growth. Maybe they're looking for an opportunity to spend more time with their kid who's a cadet. So that's why you're looking at that motivation. So another thing to think about is in all of this, recognition is key. It's an integral part of pardon me, can't even speak tonight. An integral part of retention is recognizing the effort expended by your volunteers. If they don't feel appreciated, they just may not continue to show up, okay? So it's important that you recognize that effort, the time that they spend with Civil Air Patrol. It tells them that we recognize and we appreciate the contributions that they're making to us. Our exit surveys, time and time again, bear this out. The ones that stay are the ones that feel they're making a significant impact. And we tell them they're making an impact by recognizing their service and rewarding them for doing good things. So there's a lot of ways to say thank you in Civil Air Patrol, right? Sometimes it can be informal, something as simple as, hey, you're doing a great job. I can't tell you how many times my commander has come up to me and just said, hey, look, thanks a lot for the things you're doing. You're really saving me from having to push this paper or do whatever. That's because I'm good at it. Okay. But that can be a big morale booster when somebody just says, hey, you're doing a super job. Thanks a lot. I really appreciate it. Even if it's a small thing, right? I mean, they might have done 2 things, all right? But those are 2 things you didn't have to do as a commander. Making snacks available during projects or meetings is another way to show your appreciation. Hey, look, food's the quickest way to somebody's volunteer motivation. And then, we have an annual awards process, and even something like an impact award. If you get somebody, say, a achievement award or a commander's commendation, even outside of the normal annual awards cycle, this can be a real difference when somebody's put forth a pretty good effort on something and you really want to recognize that effort. But really, when you think about it, don't just recognize these people internally, but you want to promote their accomplishments within the community. Okay, this is where you don't want inside the 4 walls of the armory or the church that you meet at. That's great. You can recognize them there, certainly. Okay, but that's in front of their peers, which is again absolutely important. But you want to trumpet this from the mountaintops as well. And this is where you get your public affairs people involved to get things in the paper, put it on your social media pages, get photographs out there. This has a twofold effect too. Not only is it good for your member retention, but it's also good for your awareness, your community awareness in the town or the local area. So in addition, think about this. You might want to actually ask your members if they want their employer made aware of their contributions to Civil Air Patrol. Some people work for big company, small company, not sure what, but I know when I worked for a good sized software company many years ago, um, we had a 2 or 3 times a year magazine that used to get mailed to us. And it was all about all the great stuff that our employees were doing. It was a lot of employee recognition. And there were photographs, Jim Smith from the Milwaukee office has been volunteering with the local Kiwanis for the last 26 years. And he just got his, 25, let's call it 25 because that's a nice round number. But, there's a picture of Jim getting his Kiwanis 25-year service award. And that's pretty cool because now you go, oh, wow, I didn't know that guy did that. That's really cool. He's a smooth dude. So this is, kind of an important thing to think about. It may seem kind of obvious, but a recent study by the Urban Institute found that just 30% of charities actually follow that practice and ask their volunteers if they want to be recognized by their employer. So if you're internally recognized in the organization, and then you're recognized by your peer group at your job, or you're recognized by the broader community through public affairs efforts, this can increase a member's pride in participation. And this is a good retention button. So think about rewards. We all like rewards. I think we all like a coffee cup, right? I know I have about 50 of them. But effective rewards can really include, simple, low or no cost things that you can give a member that just makes them feel like, hey, wow, somebody knows I'm here and somebody cares. Somebody went that extra mile to say, hey, you're doing a great job. You drank all the coffee at the squatter meeting, so here's your own coffee cup. Well, no, don't do that. But, the certificate of appreciation, it's a great thing. You can print it right out of e-services. It's really easy to get to. And, I'm not saying paper somebody's den with like 50 of these things. But what I'm saying is when somebody does something that's a little bit above and beyond the normal thing, or once a year, recognize them. Show that you appreciate the fact that they've been there for the last 50 meetings. That's a great thing. Maybe you might want to do something like have an appreciation event for your members and their tolerant spouses. It's a great way to break the ice. It includes everybody. I know my squadron, we used to do a trip on Lake Winnipesaukee. There was a dinner cruise boat that went across the lake and back, and we used to do a thing every year. The squadron would pick up a little bit of that, of the cost of it, to defray the cost. But it was like $20 or $25 a couple. It included dinner, and there was dancing or something like that, and it was a nice thing. You brought your spouse along, significant other, that sort of thing. And they felt like, hey, look, Civil Air Patrol really cares that my husband, my wife, whomever, is doing this cool thing. And hey, wow, I get to be here and have a good time too. It's a really nice opportunity. Plus, it's a great recruiting opportunity, but don't treat it like that. Some other rewards that you can think of course, in our organization, we exist in a hierarchical manner that allows our members in certain jobs to advance over time and acquire a certain higher status, quote unquote status. We call that rank or position. So with each level, CAP allows for increases in self-direction and decision making. So we've got a built-in program right here. You don't even have to make anything up. It's already here. It's established that rewards training and participation, squared away right there. The really cool thing, though, is that not only with the added responsibilities, that not only will those things help your mission, but the volunteer is going to feel more engaged. Okay, as people move up in the food chain a little bit, now they're supervising a couple other volunteers. Maybe they're your personnel officer, and they got an assistant personnel officer working for them. That kind of thing. As they move their education and training forward, they should be, rewarded in a commensurate fashion with duties and responsibilities that are commensurate with their skills and abilities. And remember that, as a commander or a leader, if you have members who are doing a really good job and are really on the ball, those are the guys that you want to use, pardon me, men or women, sorry, that you can use as trainers or mentors for new recruits, or maybe you assign them to a special project and treat it like that. You don't go, oh, hey, I got this great idea. Why don't you be the project officer for the wing conference? Wouldn't that be great? And the guy's going, oh, really? No, I mean, but sometimes that's an important thing. So you remember, you've got the rewards, you've got the skill development, you've got a whole bunch of things here really that you can use to keep your members coming back. There's nothing worse than a member showing up who doesn't feel like anybody cares that they're there, or that anybody appreciates the fact that they're there each week and doing things. Okay, I make it a point to talk to my members and make sure they know that I appreciate that they're there, that I appreciate what they're doing, that we couldn't do the things we're doing without them. It's important, even if it's just an occasional thing. So to summarize, you need to keep in mind that really, even though some members come to CAP to donate their time and abilities, it's really important for us to keep in mind that it's not what they can do for us that keeps them coming back. It's what we can do for them. Okay, not everybody is motivated by mission accomplishment. So if we're doing something for them, if we're helping them in the skill development arena, if we're helping them with personal growth, rewarding them, that's why they're going to keep on coming back. Sure, they're satisfied with the mission too, but that can't be all of it. And it's easy to see that many volunteer retention factors are really under our control. Well, there's many factors of retention that really are at play all the time. In terms of our time and energy investment, it's worth the effort to keep a volunteer. From a training standpoint, from an investment in time standpoint, it's always worth the effort to keep a volunteer. Lastly, it's important to remember that CAP's general goals in this whole thing really need to be twofold. One, we're here to fulfill our stated mission to our community, state, and nation. That's important, okay? That's what we're there to do. Aerospace education, emergency services, cadet programs, all the missions for America, the things that we're doing day in and day out. Clearly, those are important, and those should be, primary in what we're doing. But a second priority really becomes enhancing the lives of our volunteers who help execute our missions. Okay, and through this, you're going to see an increase in volunteer involvement and retention. As artist and author Florence Scovel Shinn put it, giving opens the way for receiving. So without our volunteers, we'd be unable to accomplish our missions. If you remember that, you're halfway there. So questions. I'm going to transition over to my screen over here. Marketing 101. Yes, absolutely. It does cost twice as much to get a new person than to retain an existing one. That is 152,200%, I swear. Pardon me. I'm going to take a drink of water here. Shelley, I don't think there is a stock letter to send to employers, although certainly if you'd like to come up with one, I'll put it in the field submitted materials repository, and you can use that, and then others could crib from your efforts. Any questions? Let me scroll back in the questions list here to make sure I didn't miss anything. Absolutely. This is a factor. Lieutenant Colonel Bowden here mentions the last episode that I did on communicating with members. That's a huge factor in keeping volunteers. Making sure you communicate your schedule, scheduling, and communication are huge. I'll reiterate what I said last month, or earlier this month, actually. Everybody's busy. People have got a million things going on, and they're doing all kinds of stuff. And it's really important that you are, again, that $25 an hour thing is kind of key here. You're not wasting people's time, okay? People don't want to come and have their time wasted. They don't want to, be running around like a chicken with their head cut off because somebody couldn't be bothered to plan something far enough in advance so that everybody could be on the same page and on the same schedule. So that's an important thing. Don't keep them guessing. Communicate, communicate, communicate. Nobody ever said, boy, that activity was scheduled too far in advance, and nobody ever said, boy, that activity was really over communicated. So yep, absolutely, Shelley. When you're presenting awards, make sure you're doing it in front of their peers. It's absolutely important, and not only their peers, but yeah, in front of the whole unit. Promote cadets in front of the entire squadron, not just in front of the cadets. Promote seniors in front of the entire squadron, not just in front of the seniors. You got to get that synergy of action from those things. People need to see that there's a reward that occurs through effort, whether it's a cadet getting his Mitchell or a senior member getting his level 2 completed. So it's really important. And in particular, promotions are that way. I got to tell you, it boggles my mind when I see some Civil Air Patrol squadrons that, just hand a senior member their rank and go, yep, okay, you got promoted, here you go. Wow. Like, there's only, 5 promotions you're going to get as a senior member? Second lieutenant, first lieutenant, captain, major, and lieutenant colonel. Could we make at least a little bit of a big deal out of it? It's not like it happens every week, so it's an important thing to do. Like I said, I know a squadron that they just kind of, sitting at a meeting, they're just like, oh, by the way, you're a captain now, and slide the rank across the table. It's like, oh, wow. Yeah, great recognition there. The 3 people that are in the room with you, they really got a lot out of that. So, and that volunteer sure felt like, wow, they really appreciate me. They promoted me in front of 3 whole people while we were sitting here. Let's see, squadron, who's next? I am. That's right, absolutely. Any other questions? Oh, you guys are killing me. This would be the shortest webinar I do. That'd be kind of great, actually. I wouldn't mind. So I will put in a plug later on here in December, in a couple of weeks. I'll be doing a presentation with Lieutenant Busing from California Wing, who is, we're going to be talking to the wing and region recruiting directors mostly, but certainly others can watch our presentation. And it's going to be about using Volunteer Match to broaden your reach and bring a more targeted recruiting experience to you. So. All right, everybody. Well, hey, I really appreciate your time tonight. I'm going to close this one up because, quite frankly, I could sit here and yap all night, but we don't need that. Ain't nobody got time for that, as the phrase goes. So I really appreciate your time. Really appreciate everybody being here, and we'll look forward to seeing a whole bunch of you, hopefully all of you, in the coming weeks here in December for our next presentation. Thanks very much, everybody. Have a good night.